Right, yeah, Superman, I think I remember this. I mean, it's been a little while, but it can't be that complicated. Some search about missing people in a building? Oh god, it's all coming back to me. Okay, I've got it. This Metallo bust here is a statue of Mr Mxyzptlk. It's a nod to the fact that, according to the manual, he'll be hounding us throughout the rest of the game. We'll be seeing him in action in the next area. So anyway, we're in a generic mansion filled with candelabras, sofas, paintings, lamps and robots. The only interesting item in the whole place is this innocuous blue S, which gives us a new special ability. Spin lets you spin on the spot at super speeds. While you can use it as an attack, its only true purpose is to drill through specific spots, which aren't optional or anything. Once we've drilled down here though, Master System veterans should start thinking things are looking a little familiar, as this map was mostly used for its second level. Just like that level, there's children locked behind doors, however here they're able to make use of these tiny ladders to escape instead of just warping away. Superman of course can't use the ladders. Instead, he's doomed to walk a path of linear progression, saving the occasional youngling as he goes. The manual's suggestion that this level is related to a plot by Metallo to rob a bank, and that it would be riddled with the bodies of Metropolis City workers doesn't really seem to hold up. The only people here are these kids, who arguably should have been in the first level. For once it seems like the Master System port may have actually fixed something in the conversion, but to be fair, manual inconsistencies aren't exactly an uncommon feature of the 16-bit generation. But no. As with the first level, negotiating the area without taking incidental damage is the main concern. The overhead turrets can be a little bit of a surprise, so you want to learn exactly where they are and destroy them the instant you score them onto the screen. Likewise with the majority of the ground-based robots, you want to get up to and destroy them before they really get the opportunity to fire at you at all. Now, what you're seeing here is basically a practiced sequence of events that hopefully results in a success. This section with the vertical turrets can be pretty tough. Jump kicking the middle two and dropping down past the fourth is important. If you go for the jump attack on the last one, it shoots you out of the air, possibly into this green slime. The slime, like the skyscraper rocks from the previous level, will take half your health from this difficulty. Fortunately, these are the only two pools in the whole level. While we saw this platforming section in the SMS port, in that game we could just fly to bypass it. Here it makes a lot more sense, and there's a couple extra obstacles to boot. Of course, the platforming elements are also rather difficult sometimes, the running controls getting the better of me here yet again. In fact, in one recording I made, I was stuck on the right side of this pool for about 30 seconds trying to get them to work, before eventually just running straight into the sludge. Anyway, if we take a quick flip back to the Master System game, we'll be able to take a look at something that I mentioned when we were here then. And well, there you go, that's pretty much it. It's not that interesting or useful really. It's one of the few oversights made when copying the map over, and lets you skip past a very small part of the level. Well anyway, just ahead here we have another new type of enemy. They kind of sit around on the ground and only jump into action when you get close. If you ignore them, they actually just kind of fly off into the distance never to bug you again, which is probably the best way to deal with them rather than actually fight them. Also, the purple door we just pounded through acquired the Super Punch power-up, another petal on the flower of linearity. And here we catch a glimpse of another enemy, the Arbitrary Missile. They rise up and then move horizontally across the screen in a fixed pattern. They move so quickly that combined with the game's terrible hit detection, there's basically no way to fight them. Really your only options are to run away and hide, or to use Sonic Punch until they shoot past you, and that will be the option I'll be taking the next time they crop up. From around this point, the design of the level diverges from what we experienced in the Master System game. These rooms off to the right, instead of being the correct way to go, are now completely optional. In fact, Superman, ever the altruist, doesn't actually have to save the poor children trapped within. Anyway, now it's time for a completely pointless mini-boss. Right, there you go. You've seen everything that it can do. So I guess that means it's time to fast forward. I did actually bait it all the way to the very far end of this corridor just to see if it would try and drive out of the level, but sadly they appear to have accounted for that one. Anyway, once you finally beat it, it will drop the spin power-up that you need to progress. That's why it's kind of a shame you can't skip through that platform like you can in the Master System game. Because if you didn't need to pick up that Super Punch power-up in order to break through the impenetrable door, then you might have actually been able to skip past this annoying pain in the arse boss. Oh well. Noting that though, we do actually have a choice of which superpower to go forwards with here. That Super Punch power-up was, for once, actually optional, so you can go forwards with Spin. While Spin is reasonable for the upcoming boss, once again we're faced with missiles and giant green basement lasers, neither of which Spin is a good fit for. The lasers shoot in a pattern back and forth. They're fired from emitters at the bottom of the room. It's as straightforward as to avoid, but as you descend you're hounded by additional missiles. Waiting for Super Punch to recharge between volleys is a must, since there's almost always one that shoots in at the end to deter you if you try to jump over them. Down in this far bottom right corner though, we find the only precious forbidden fruit the level has, a health pickup. Getting to it is pretty tricky since you don't want to get caught between lasers and have the little robot hurl grenades into the safe area. Anyway, we're on the home stretch for this section now, and none too soon. There's a handful of enemies left to dog soups, but most are inconsequential. One of them though is a bastard. This is the last jump the level has. Positioned just after it though is this slider turret. This slider turret is a dick. If you try to jump up to that platform, it will shoot you square in the gut and knock you back down. Repeatedly. Do not play his game and instead jump up and punch him from below. Anyway, that's it. Hooray! It's time to fight Metallo. Metallo is a terrifying cyborg powered by kryptonite. He of course uses his kryptonite to shoot a hurtful array of green blobs at Superman. However, you can just walk through him without getting hurt, so it's a case of just avoiding his projectiles and piling damage into him. A lot of the time he'll get you in the toes or in that really vulnerable bit that floats invisibly 2 feet in front of your head, but there's plenty of room to move around in this boss fight, so really there's not much of an excuse for getting hit other than being thoroughly annoyed at having played the rest of the level and just wanting to get it over with. Since again we're on difficult, this boss fight is going to take a while, so enjoy the music. Hark, could it be? It's an actual bona fide in-game cutscene. It has of course broken. Superman is supposed to be locked in place by Metallo's super kryptonite bullshit. However, I can move around just fine, so I tried to punch him to death in case it let me skip the rest of the level somehow. Sadly it didn't. However, it's a subway. Now it all makes sense or something. Here though we're presented with a startling revelation. They added that whole awful shitty flying bit into the Master System game, and it was really beginning to grow on me too. Oh well. Sadly though, because it's the same level, our health hasn't been refilled, so I'm basically boned. I have 1, maybe 2 hits left, and the train is filled with a lot of the same awkward robotic enemies we saw in the underground factory basement, as well as a few extras who are every bit as much of a pain. Out of basically nowhere, there are these giant spiders that cling to the ceiling. While they don't directly attack, they drop 4 tiny spiderlings which run across the floor in your direction, with a timing that requires you to hop slightly sideways each time, or else they end up biting you in your oh so vulnerable super toes. In addition, here we get our first sight of Mr Mxyzptlk. He's the guy in yellow throwing bombs in. Nothing stops him from throwing bombs in at terrible times like this. Either way though, I got shot in the face and died. Also, I think we got an extra continue for some reason, probably because of points. On the plus side, this means I get to restart this section with full health, which I think is basically necessary. With regard to Mr Mxyzptlk, as I understand it, he's a tricksy magic imp from the 5th dimension who's usually in it for a laugh. That's probably why he's just tossing bombs in. Speaking of the bombs, they're far more dangerous in terms of upsetting Superman's Achilles toenails than actually exploding, but they can get mixed in with the spiderlings or the high-speed UFOs and can present a basically unavoidable hit. So you have to always be ready to throw out a sonic punch for the situations where things are going to go real wrong real fast, as you'll run into several of these otherwise unavoidable hit situations on your long miserable journey through the train. While it might be tempting to stand around a bit and try and separate the enemies up and let your punch gauge refill, there are a couple of downsides with that strategy. Both the high-speed surprise UFOs and Mr Mxyzptlk will still trigger over and over whether you're moving or not, so you can still end up in a shitty situation. In addition, the small jumping robots can't move through the joints between the carriages and instead start spitting out a constant stream of grenades. There's usually 2 or 3 of them at a time too, so if you let a group of them get to one of the joints, you're in a lot of trouble. So instead, I took the moving as fast as possible through the train approach, while throwing out carefully practiced responses to each situation as it came up. This is actually the first time I got hit this time through, and if I'd reacted to the UFOs in time, Sonic Punch probably would have saved me. It's a shame too, since this is the last carriage of enemies before the boss, although he's still a bit of a sprint away. And well, it's Metallo again. He behaves literally exactly the same way as he did when we fought him in the last area. This time though we have a hellishly low ceiling, which makes the whole affair much more complicated. In addition, our scrolling is fixed, but he's free to walk off to the left and will even sometimes attack while off screen. As you may have observed last time, he has 3 attacks, summoning 3 blobs that move in a circular pattern, shooting his arm at you, and firing his ultra chest cannon beam. The 3 blobs attack is tamed a little bit here because we're much higher up on the screen than we were last time, and if the blobs go off the sides of the screen, they cease to exist. Note that behind the HUD doesn't count as off screen. Meanwhile, the arm attack has an obvious charging frame in a limited range, so you're either going to be close enough to run through him or far enough away that it won't hit you. The kicker though, and the reason this fight is a bitch, is the chest cannon. Its intro animation starts the same way as the blob attack, so it can be hard to tell the two apart initially. The beam for it widens out to be as tall as Superman is after a certain distance too, which means that with the train's low ceiling it's basically impossible to jump over. It's the main reason why I'm sticking so close to him and risking the eye of the blobs, just so I'm able to run through him nearly every time he attacks. Due to my getting through the level with a lot of health, I have hits to burn here at the boss, since the level will end proper and we'll get a full refill. If that wasn't the case, I'd be having to be far more cautious with the blobs. The radius they travel depends on how far away you are from Metallo when they're released, so instead of just piling in the punches I'd have to be hiding in a corner somewhere. I'd also be probably having to save my sonic punches for their invincibility frames rather than their fat damage, which is a shame all around really. Either way, I'm really glad that Mr Mxyzptlk has pissed off back to the 5th dimension, and that the only addition to this fight is the lowered ceiling. If you saw the Master System videos, you may remember that ceiling-bound laser dropping enemies continued to hound you during this boss fight, and if our bomb-throwing nemesis hadn't gotten bored and left, he continued to hurl his explosives at you. I suppose it was to make up for the fact that Metallo had literally none of these attacks and was basically just a grey version of Superman's sprite. He's actually a pretty decent boss overall, and this second innings offers a nice change, and I somehow seem to have fond memories of fighting Metallo in both cases, probably just because he doesn't have anything overtly bullshit. Anyway, somewhat accurately, we've done it again, and we did in fact kill Metallo with a sonic punch, so the picture's pretty spot on too. I've mentioned it before, but if you're playing on easy, the only setting that makes this game remotely palatable, the game just ends here and tells you that you've just got to be more super if you want to play any more of the game. I think that that's some kind of secret message, but sadly I seem blind to it and must continue in my attempts to save people. In particular, Lois Lane, who has been abducted by Brainiac probably, at least she was last time. Apparently she has big Texas hair and may be in a mountain, so our objective is clear. See you next time.